Welcome to Land&LEGACY podcast. This is your host, Adam Keith.
And Matt Dye.
We have another very special podcast for you this week right here on the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network. This week's podcast brought to you by Deer Lab,
the ultimate tool in managing, organizing, and understanding your trail camera images.
Nice job.
Thanks, man.
I forgot all about I was trying to remember what I had typed out, but you have it.
There's a slight pause, and it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I can see it.
Those notes are a long ways over there. So anyway, this week's podcast is going to be very exciting. We kind of hinted at it and talked about it a little bit a couple podcasts ago, but this week we have an entire session designated to the little bit we talked about, which is
Stratton Seed Company.
That's right.
And briefly, before we get into talking with the individuals there at Stratton Seed Company and all the specifics that they have going on with some food plot blends and soybeans, and we're going to talk about basically our thoughts and how we implement food plots into property management and the right layouts on farms. I know we've talked about it before, Adam, how emphasis on food plots is so high, and sometimes I think they're given or too much emphasis on them on specific properties, where not every place or every portion, every acre needs to be devoted to a food plot, even if it's flat or if it's already open. So in a land management point of view, talk about how we like to emphasize and place food plots throughout a property, any property.
Well, I think when it comes to food plots, I think the biggest thing that we see is it's almost used as a shortcut, as in I don't have to worry about improving the habitat. I'll just plant a couple of food plots and be good. And that's so far from the truth. And actually the design that we try to use is we want the wildlife to get by with everything that's native and everything that they should have, but then we're going to supplement a food plot in strategically placed areas to where we have a very high preferred food source that makes our hunting success a lot higher.
Yeah, exactly. Draw them into certain areas that we can access based on the other specifics of the property, wherever cover is the best, and get in between that and a larger food source. That typically works if the property's large enough, so on and so forth. That works the best. But you're right, like there's so much emphasis on just food, yet if we want to talk about proper land management, we've got to do other practices like increase the bedding, make sure there's security throughout the entire property so they'll actually get to your food plots during daylight hours. I think that's the struggle, but what we've seen is food plots, because sometimes equipment, you don't have to have a lot if you already have a cleared opening. They're a great segue to get people into more land management practices.
Yeah, totally. It's as CWD increases and other states find it, and baiting and mineral gets outlawed, basically it's like this is the next step for people to kind of go into this whole land management. Is you can't just dump a bag of feed out or a feeder now.
Mineral, yeah.
You have to do a little bit more, and that's where more and more people are doing food plots. So, and
then once they're there, they're going to continue to step up or graduate, whatever you want to call it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, to increasing more habitat. That's what's going to make the biggest difference overall for a property, your hunting seasons. I think what we've talked about last week was just overall enjoyment with family, friends, getting outdoors during the springtime, not just during the fall, but working together as a camp or as a family or property owners. That's going to be encouraging to see.
Oh, totally. And I think with the food plots and in this day and age, we hear so much about winter kill and EHD, CWD. It's like everybody's worried about the doom and gloom of whitetail deer. And I think of habitat management and food plotting going kind of hand in hand, to where if you just did it, if you just no food plots, you just did native vegetation and tried to replicate nature the best you could, you'd still have pretty good success if you manage it correctly. But the food plot's just a supplement. Now, if you just did food plots, it would be pretty good, but it's that time when stress levels are very high that if you're doing both, you have the ability to help a wildlife or a deer herd along and get through that very stressful time.
Yeah, and we talked about, you mentioned earlier, food plots are a great way to supplement native forages, and that comes hand in hand with those stress periods. And when we're talking about food plots, they're great for hunting strategies, but they also go beyond that, and we think about having great quality food in our plots still remaining February and into March. If you can do that and have that ample food supply, you are well on your way to having great healthy herds.
Or let's look at it from woody browse during this time of year. Actually, a little bit earlier in the spring and late winter, is woody browse is such a huge part of a deer's diet. But if you have a large deer herd and they have started consuming the woody browse to where there's more deer than the amount of woody browse you have, that's where a food plot can come in to help offset some of that deer pressure. So I think, and not only that, let's look at it from the other side and say you have a food plot that's just getting hammered by deer browse, but if you don't have woody browse, that's just another way to offset the amount of pressure that if you added that woody browse to that area. So you can do both and really have a huge success. So that's what this week's podcast is all about. We're going to go talk with the guys. I think it's guys. It may be Guy from Stratton Seed Company out of Stuttgart, Arkansas. We're very excited about this partnership, and I think you guys should be too with some of the things we have coming up. So you ready to get them on?
Let's get them on the phone. Absolutely.
Here we are. We've got Mr. Heath North from Stratton Seed Company and Keith Hammer. How you guys doing today?
Good, Adam. How about yourself?
We are doing good in cloudy, cold Missouri. Doesn't feel like the day after Easter, but we're here and hoping it feels like spring in the coming weeks.
Well, we're in the same boat this morning. We did turn out for a nice Easter, but today it's back to the winter scene, looks like.
Man, so you guys had a nice Easter. We had ice and 30-degree temps yesterday here.
Well, here we always say just wait around for a little bit. The weather's going to change pretty quick on you. So we were sunny and 70 yesterday, and we're probably cloudy and 50 this morning.
Wow. Huh, I'm a little bit jealous about that. I bet birds were gobbling down there. Oh, well, so we're going to jump into this. We've got a long list of questions to ask you guys and kind of talk about everything Stratton Seed Company and everything around what's around the bend for you guys. And, of course, Matt and I just opened up the podcast talking about how very excited we are for this partnership, and hopefully everyone listening is excited too, because I think there's a lot of things that are going to be offered here that haven't really hit the market yet. So this is definitely something we're excited to talk about with you guys today.
Same here. We're looking forward to moving forward with some of these new products, and getting this partnership going is really going to help with that, I believe.
Well, good deal. Can you guys just real briefly tell us about the history of Stratton Seed, where you guys got started, and how that's led you guys to the point in which you are sitting there today?
Sure. So Stratton started in 1948. Mr. Leland Stratton started the business, actually bought it from a friend in town. And from there, basically have grown it into a pretty large ag retailer as well as ag wholesaler in the southern U.S. So obviously based in Stuttgart, Arkansas, we've are now transitioning into our third generation of family ownership, which says a lot about a seed company. You don't see many privates that have hung around as long as what Stratton has. So makes us feel pretty secure in our work efforts, and hopefully with this expansion we'll be able to drive that boat for a very long time. We have been mostly into row crop ag, be it rice, beans, corn, wheat. So we've had a pretty good run, and have decided to start looking at some of this wildlife blends, wildlife products, and are starting to gear some of our product lines up towards that. We just felt like we didn't have enough to do, so we decided to add to it.
Yeah, I bet you sure felt like that. Not enough to do. Huh. So kind of give us a little bit, when you say you're in the ag side and you're planting rice, of course, we were down there a couple weeks ago. We toured the place, drove through miles and miles of rice fields and everything like that. But have you guys, I think, of course, you're gearing up for this, but are you doing much cover crop blends? Is that something you guys have started seeing from the ag? I'm just curious from the ag side because, of course, an ag background, but let's talk cover crops.
Sure. And for the last couple of years, cover crops in our area especially have been a growing market. And there's been a lot of government payments that have come to help just to establish. And it's pretty much taken the South by storm for the last couple of years. You get a lot of benefits, not only from leaching different additives like nitrogen out of the soil, but also to help with weed suppression and even just, erosion, so to speak. We've gotten real big into cereal rye. That has been the main player for us in the cover crops the last few years, and looks like it's going to continue to be into this year. And that was a big part of how we even started looking at some of the blends for wildlife, because a lot of the same material carries over into these blends.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured when I asked that question. Was you got into cover crops and then you realized that there wasn't a whole lot of difference between some of the high diversity food plot blends versus the cover crop blends.
Absolutely. And, just adding a few different things and taking a few out, you come up with a pretty good wildlife blend that serves another market and something that we've not seen a lot of competition or our main competitors in at this point.
Yeah, I think you guys are well ahead of a lot of people when it comes to that, and set up really well at this point in the game to be able to get a lot of seed out there and get a lot of those high diversity blends into the food plotters' hands. So for the both of you guys, talk us a little bit about like your roles there, what you guys do, and how long you've worked there with Stratton.
Well, my role, I'm the director of seed operations. I manage most of the day-to-day seed operations, as well as I've got a staff of wholesalers that work in various states. We've moved as far north at this point as Missouri and Illinois, and as far south as Florida. So pretty much we encompass the whole southeast United States. And with that comes some of our logistics, and we've been set up on since the inception. And that's just how we've managed to probably stay around for quite as long as we have. But I've been with the company moving into 10 years now, and been in my role for probably the last 3 years. So been around for a little while anyway.
Now I want to hear him because I know he's there. We haven't brought him into the conversation yet, but let's hear from Mr. Keith Hammer.
I have been with Stratton here for a few short months so far, and hopefully a few more years to come at least. And right now I'm out in warehouse, and I'm treating a lot of row crop seeds as far as soybeans and rice, getting them ready to get planted, go into the ground for this spring crop. And right now, mainly just treating, conditioning seed a little bit now, running some wheat. And so far, that's about it.
There you go.
Keith has been an excellent addition to the staff, and much like all of us when we all started out here, we try to learn every aspect of the business, and Keith has picked up on a lot of this stuff very quickly. So we're looking forward to seeing what all he can accomplish in his tenure here.
Nice. It's always fun to kind of get your roots started and understand the all operations. Then you just become better at your job later down the road. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and think. We kind of touched on it a little bit. We covered cover crops and the ag side. So and you teased us a little bit. So basically, Stratton, branching in the food plot world, what led you guys to do that?
honestly, it came from demand. A lot of our stores that do cover crops, a lot of your row crop retail stores have asked us along the way, as we started blending this stuff together, if we could do something for deer, or do something for ducks, or we've always moved a lot of like Japanese millet and different single items, but as it's gotten down to it, with the ability to blend the cover crops, it just made sense to start putting this stuff together for food plots. And a lot of our customer base haven't really had a lot of options to this point. And again, we're talking the whole southeast of the U.S. so far, and it just gives us another option to work with our customers and looking at ways to basically keep us in the stores just about year round now.
Makes sense. I think we've got a couple other questions, but people need to hang on because we're going to dive into some of the blends and what specifically you guys have to offer coming up. But I think Matt's got a couple questions before we get there.
Yeah, I think, as a new company kind of comes onto the scene, everyone's worried about, and you guys are, down in Arkansas, a lot of hunters, kind of Midwest and the Northeast. Can you talk to us about how distribution is going to work? Like, when someone orders a bag of seed or 5 bags of seed or 10 bags of seed, what's that process going to look like for them to be able to get that seed in their possession?
Well, we're going to have a few options to look at, and the first being that we do operate in a lot of these storefronts, that be it your Helena Chemicals, your CPS, or Greenpoint Ag. There's a lot of those stores that have been spaced around most of these areas, and we'll have the options to go through those guys, which will actually just deliver to the storefronts, and they'll be able to pick it up there. But in addition, we're also looking for new distributors, and maybe not what has been a traditional row crop store. And anyone that has an interest in that, we definitely would have the option to talk with those guys. And we know that we're not looking to fill a store up by any means, but like you said, 5, 10, 15, maybe even a pallet of beans. Our process will be pretty simple to be able to become a distributor, basically a credit app, and for a small volume, and we'll basically ship it into the store and have it ready for the guys to move out the door. And our third option that we're looking at, which may be just a little bit before we get it squared away, is with our website at GoStrattonSeed.com. We're actually looking at adding in basically a purchase tab where folks can purchase online with a credit card and basically have it shipped directly to you out of our facility, either here in Stuttgart or one of the other 4 locations that we have, which basically spread up to southeast Missouri at this point.
Fantastic. I think that would be a huge benefit for you guys. When we talk about this from the beginning of our partnership was, okay, how do we get the seed to the consumer? How do we get it in the food plots this spring? And distribution has always been one of those things with any seed company we see, any food plot seed company is, okay, how can we get it and how can the common food plotter get it? Because you can't go down to Walmart or wherever and pick it up. And so I think with your guys' stance and or your foundation in the ag side, and being that you've built up this large business that has the ability to ship and do all kinds of different things than your normal smaller seed companies wouldn't be able to do, I think it's a huge benefit to you guys.
I agree. Like I said, first and foremost, we've been founded on service and servicing our customers, and that's what we want to try to push through. It doesn't matter whether it's row crop or food plot. We want the service behind our product.
Yeah, and I'm going to, in our show notes, Heath, just so you know, I'm going to be putting in a link so that folks can go and find out your information if they're interested in becoming a dealer, or if they know someone who may be a business owner looking to expand. They can contact you directly and kind of get that process started, get a little more information, and try and open up that line of communication for you guys.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Yes, there you guys. Listeners have it. If you're interested in becoming a dealer, here's the man to get in touch with. And I think you may be going, okay, why do I need to become a dealer? Hold on to yourself right now, because we're getting ready to go into all the different types of blends you guys have. And I think right now, I guess last year was probably, when was the first year you guys released the GameChanger soybeans?
So GameChangers have been around for 2 years now. We're going into our third season as we speak. So our first year out, we noticed a need and had several people that have asked us for wildlife soybeans. So we started looking through our selection process and trying to isolate a variety that could do both well in a more of a forage type food plot as well as seed production side. So we've done our best to isolate this variety as a dual purpose soybean, and have had great luck and great reception to this point, enough that we're continuing to grow, and sales have been increased pretty significantly even into this third year. So seeing a lot of good results out of it at this point.
Fantastic. When I think about soybeans, and this is a conversation you and I had just recently, just kind of because it's always the question, what is the difference between a forage soybean and your conventional ag bean?
So just to kind of break it down a little bit, in the world of soybean breeders, you have breeders that look for different things. And as they make their selection process, they're going to select for what their market is asking for. In the ag side of things, as you guys can probably guess, most people have looked for yield. That's their number one aspect that they look for. So as these soybean breeders that are looking for ag continue to select, they're always selecting the highest yielding variety that they can. Forage soybeans, on the other hand, are not as focused on pod production or seed production, but more so on vegetative growth, height, big leaves, just something that will give a good amount of forage, a good amount of food through the summer and early fall months. So as you guys can guess, a breeder that would be looking for a forage soybean would be continuing to select either tall varieties or very leafy varieties. And what we isolated GameChanger for is to kind of bridge that gap together a little bit, where you'll still have that tall, growthy, viney kind of look, as well as when you get to the fall, you'll actually have some pod production. And as you and I spoke, even when we do get to fall, the leaves will come off and give you guys the opportunity to actually put another fall cover crop or food plot blend in the mix with the soybeans.
You've just described, kind of two different ends of the spectrum, and then this GameChanger soybean is falling right in the middle and kind of getting, like you said, the best of both worlds. And that, to me, hits a new market, hits a big point for people to plant and get incredible growth during the summertime, but then still be able to rely on that plot as pod production is extremely high in these beans and late season rolls around. This plot, these acres devoted to this soybean can feed and hold and keep deer coming conditioning to a single area for many, many months throughout an entire year.
Absolutely. And in addition to being kind of a middle of the road from a forage or ag side, GameChanger also has an excellent disease package. So typical diseases that you see in soybeans, even be it pests, come down to soybean cyst nematodes, root knot nematodes, stuff that you may not even know you have that will be in your plot, has a built-in immune system to fight against all those. And that's what gives you your growth even during what would be more stressful times for the soybeans.
Makes sense. Fantastic. Just out of curiosity, what is the kind of retail price that you guys are coming out there with this GameChanger?
Typically, what we're doing right now is $39.95 plus whatever shipping costs may be added to that, and that's per bag, which will cover an acre.
There you have it. 50-pound bag, correct?
Correct.
That's right. I just want to clarify for the listeners there. They've heard it right there, $39.99 for a 50-pound bag. And I think that's a price point that's going to be a huge benefit to the consumer, and there's going to hopefully be a lot of acres planted in the GameChanger soybeans this spring just because of the new type, the hybrid. I say hybrid. I guess that's a bad choice of words when we're talking plants, but you have a forage, but also pod producing soybean that's at that price point. That's also, as we get into it here in a second, it's glyphosate resistant.
Absolutely. So it gives you the option to control your weed pressure and give the most vegetative growth as well as reproductive growth for the soybeans.
There you have it. And I think this might be a good time that we talk about whenever we post this. We'll most likely have the flyer of the GameChanger, and people will see glyphosate resistant. And I think one of the questions we get asked is Roundup Ready. What's the difference between the two?
So actually, glyphosate is the active ingredient for Roundup. So there are trademarks that own the name Roundup and Roundup Ready that we're not allowed to use, but there is no difference in the material. It is in a sense glyphosate resistant or Roundup Ready soybeans.
Right. So it's just a common name versus the more specific active ingredient in the herbicide. So if you guys are out there looking to be able to control weeds in your food plots, these beans can still do that. They just don't say the Roundup Ready, they're glyphosate tolerant. So I think that's huge for people who are wanting to have those control weeds in their plots and just kind of that well manicured look to the food plot. And huge potentials with them.
We're very excited about it, and like I said, to this point, the feedback that we've gotten from our current customers has been phenomenal. So we hope everybody that chooses to take a part of this can help us with that as well.
For sure. Now, we covered the GameChanger beans. Let's talk about some of the stuff we're excited about and the blends and what specifically is on the horizon for this spring.
So obviously for the spring, you guys and I have talked a little bit and are looking at putting our spring blend together, which I think encompasses looks like cowpeas, soybeans, lab, a couple different millets, milo, sunflowers, buckwheat, and even some of the sun hemp that you guys have suggested we take a look at.
Yeah, and guys, if you're out there listening, we've done podcasts on different spring annual mixes and the goals that we have for those mixes when it comes to soil health, diversity, mining different nutrients, but still providing a lot of forage. This is the blend that will allow you to basically reach those objectives in your plot too. So we're excited to be able to have Stratton basically mixing all these seeds together, putting it in a bag, and basically making it available for everyone else to see the success that we've seen in those categories.
I think,
and we're definitely
go ahead, Heath.
We're excited, seeing some of this stuff come together. Like I said, we have done some food plot blends, be it fall blends, but this will be our first adventure into the spring type stuff.
That's awesome. I think this is something that Matt and I have been toying with and tweaking with for years now, and I think back. I'm trying to remember the first year we planted a spring mix, and it was over 5 or 6 years ago, and we just tweaked it over the years. And in the last couple of years, we felt like we got pretty doggone close to what we were looking for. And about that time, you guys came along, and it was like this is going to be a perfect partnership because we have the ability to assist you guys in getting that bagged up and in the consumer's hands.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to putting it together and getting out there with it to see how things turn out this spring. For
sure. Now, when it comes to, you said in the past you've done some fall blends. I almost said cover crops, but fall food plot mixes. Now, what is some of the, let's not give too much away, but what are some of the species that are going to be involved in those blends?
Well, basically, we're going to look at 2 different mixes this year. As we are in Stuttgart, in the duck capital of the world, I couldn't put mixes together and leave our migratory birds out. So we actually are going to have what we call Quick 6, which is basically a migratory or a waterfowl mix that will include a couple of different species of millet, some dwarf bicolor corn, some buckwheat, rice, and milo. So a little more aquatic based, and something that should be able to stand up, hopefully, to the summer heat, but also if the feet get wet, should be able to survive and thrive very well there.
Awesome. I think that's what we're excited about, because you guys are down there in Stuttgart, as we mentioned before, and Matt and I, hint, wink, wink, haven't ever even hunted ducks in Arkansas, especially not in duck capital of the world. So that may be something that we have to come down and do a little field testing on.
I think that's something we're going to have to do. You know, we try to sneak out of here as often as we can to find the woods or find a duck blind somewhere. So any opportunity to encompass that with business, I think, is a win-win for everybody.
We're in.
That's right.
We'll pencil in a date here when we get off the podcast. But no, I think that whole idea of branching out and having seed mixes for migratory waterfowl, that's what we're all about too. That's why I think the partnership works so well. We're land managers. We're not just focused on deer. They're a huge portion of just our thoughts and our time and our business. But we want to still be able to create better habitat for whether it's quail and geese that are migrating, ducks that are migrating, everything. So I think I'm really excited just to see how all this flows into your guys' packaging and getting it out there in different consumers' hands as well.
Sure, and we're excited in the same sense. So, that gives us the opportunity to basically cover our waterfowl mix, but also putting together a fall food plot mix that, in a sense, is going to cover several different species of clover, some winter peas, different rye, radishes, turnips, oats. So a pretty all-encompassing fall food plot that you guys have kind of helped us put together as well.
That's fantastic to hear. I think we can't tell you how excited we are for soil to start warming up and we can get some seed in the ground here in maybe a month, I guess, when we look at, it's already April 2nd, so we're looking about a month out from planting up here. So very exciting times for us for sure. And
in addition to looking at these mixes in acre quantities, we're also looking at backing off a little bit. We know some guys may not quite need all of that, but we're actually going to basically half our bag sizes in some of this material to give the guys that want to try half an acre at a time the ability to do so as well.
Perfect. I think that's fantastic. I think there's a lot of guys that we look at that are planting just a half acre that'll jump all over that.
And experimenting. We're always trying different things and seeing how they work, how the wildlife responds to them, how they stand up to different weather conditions. And just having that option of having a smaller bag size can devote a specific area to testing this stuff, do some trial runs with these blends and seeing how they stack up to maybe other things that folks have planted. So if you're out there just looking to try it and just like, well, let me see what it's like, that bag size is going to be perfect to be able to kind of fit that niche for those individuals.
Definitely. We hope we can get some side-by-side comparisons and see how things turn out, not only from the food plot blends, but also from the GameChanger side of things as well.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty well, unless we have something that we missed, but looks like we pretty well got through all the questions we had for you guys. If you got anything else you'd like to add?
Other than we're excited about this partnership and looking forward to hopefully reciprocating some of these hunts back and forth with you guys. So we'll have to get together.
There you go. We've talked about it. About the time spring food plotting comes up is turkey season, and as talking with Keith, you guys are down there in a part of the world where there's not that many turkeys, so we definitely want to extend the invite and have you guys up during Missouri turkey season.
Sounds like a great business meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Bring your hiking boots, boys.
Yeah. Well, we sure
guys, we really appreciate the time.
Yeah, we sure do appreciate you guys spending some time with us this morning.
Absolutely. Well, anytime or any questions, you guys can direct them to us, and we'll do our best to handle anything that comes our way.
Perfect, Heath. And Keith, we appreciate your time, and we'll be talking with you guys later on.
Sounds great.
Nice to talk to you, Adam and Matt. Take care.
You too.
There he was. I was beginning to wonder if Keith was still there. What'd you think?
So excited. That's going to be good. Really, really good. I think that, with any newish company, if you will, that comes into a different industry, there's always, eyebrows that are raised. That's why one is important for us just to speak directly with them, introduce them, and just kind of allow people to build that relationship with Stratton themselves, and know that, hey, they're hunters just like me. They've got the mindset of, improving and offering diversity within their food plot mixes. And I think that's important. Adam, we're the same boat as, if we're going to align with someone or try and partner with someone, it's gotta match our thoughts on management. It has to match our mindset and the goals. We just have to have that similar goal. And it didn't take long to realize that they were kind of in the same boat, So it made sense. But they're so open to trying things. They're so
that was
open
the
to
huge
new things.
The huge thing for us was, when we set out on this adventure, it was like, and that adventure is Land and Legacy, is like, well, we want to make sure the people that we partnered with have the same mission as us or have the same vision, and they're walking to the same song as us.
Yep. Same
and whenever actually Keith reached out and we started talking about kind of the direction of Stratton and started understanding their company history as being an ag side, cover crop, how big they were, and having the ability to distribute, but not only that, but have the desire to come to us and work with us on some of the blends that we've tested and have tweaked over the years, and how, those blends haven't ever been bagged up.
No.
So the stuff that we're getting ready to have them, I guess, work with them and develop, and they're going to come out with is stuff that hasn't ever been sold in a bag before, to my knowledge. And so I think that's one of the most exciting things for us is, we've tweaked this and tried these things, and we feel like, okay, it was ironic, but about the time we get to where, okay, we need to replace this with this, we need to change the poundage of this to that, I think that's what we've been going for. And it's like, oh,
we're there.
Here's a company that wants to work with us, and they're basically going, okay, how can we make and bag what you guys are testing? And it's like,
okay,
this is perfect.
Oh,
so
perfect timing. And again, they have an incredible mindset to one, just their customer service, but two, their knowledge of blends, their knowledge of seed. These guys are farmers. I'm going to air quote this because it's a phrase, but they play in the dirt every day.
Yeah.
They're out there. So it makes sense. And I don't want to stress this, but we've sat back and turned down partnerships and stuff before just for the fact that it just doesn't make sense. And I don't want to sit back and try and promote something that's not going to make sense,
No.
or just match
sense.
into our whole scheme and the way we manage and look at properties or the way we look at just nature in general. Doesn't make sense. It's not going to make sense.
And you know what's... Boy, that map has been driving me nuts this whole podcast. But for those of you guys that are listening, if you're not aware, we've started recording our podcasts and are putting those on YouTube. And the first one is up. Of course, we're recording this one today, and it's going to release a few days after we release on Sportsman's Nation. But you can go to YouTube and check out our recorded podcast. So we have a set. I say set. We have a studio that's basically just a rearranged version of what we've recorded on in the past, and we put up a map behind us, but it just keeps falling, and it's just been driving us nuts. So anyway, enough about that. I think with Stratton, it's one of those things where it's a big enough company to really get the seed where we want it. As far as there's a guy in Nebraska who wants a couple of bags, boom, it's there. We don't have to worry about it. But it's kind of a smaller core to where something's up. You want to call up the man himself. There you go.
Yeah.
You just pick up the phone and find him and call him.
That's the other portion. Like they're so big that, and they've developed so many relationships with other seed companies that where they can source sun hemp, they can source millet, they can source sorghum at prices that will make sense when they put it all together in a mix, and it's still affordable. And that's the other thing. $39.95 for 50-pound bag of
Glyphosate resistant forage soybeans.
I think some jaws may have dropped when he said that, but I mean it's true. It's for real.
Yeah.
And that's a price point that hasn't been matched, hasn't really come close to being matched. And not only does it become just more affordable, but it comes more versatile in the way you can plant them too.
Absolutely. I think there was a little bit, of course, we're very excited about this, but there's all kinds of things that have me excited for this partnership is the fact that there was one thing he mentioned about the GameChangers and what group they are allows them to, they're going to be dropping their leaves earlier than what you might expect. Not as far as early like midsummer, but some of those beans we planted and you see out there like they're a forage soybean, they stay green by design for a long time during the fall, which is, it can be a great thing, but that doesn't allow you to come back and put a cover crop in those standing beans
as successfully as this group will allow you to do.
Yes, so there's kind of it goes just far enough to really get you a lot of forage, but then allows you to start turning the wheels to where now it's a grain product because we're trying to focus on pods and allow us to replace it with greens underneath as far as a cover crop. So,
and that's the thing that we see on a lot of properties as we travel to. You know, I love standing grain, but a lot of times unsuccessful cover crop has, it's been tried to be planted, but then now when you look at February, you look at March, there's 0 pods and there's 0 forage growing underneath of it. It's dirt or bare ground or soil, and it's like,
standing grain can't take the browse pressure that a fall cover crop can.
Yeah. So now with this blend, with this soybean and the group that it's in, will allow you to successfully broadcast because the timing in which those leaves are coming off for that cover crop to get established, or that fall blend in the standing grain to get established, get a root system, and then be able to take the browse pressure that's going to have throughout the rest of the season and into the spring. That's exciting.
No, totally.
That's why, like, just that mindset matches exactly everything that we've been trying to talk about and hopefully preach and get out there about soil health. And then it just offers more tonnage per acre of food plot that you can successfully grow throughout an entire year.
Diversity, baby.
That's it.
That's going to be one of our first
shirts. Did you call
shirts.
me baby, or was that just
That was
general?
Just the chant. Yeah, like, yeah, baby.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
That's coming too for you guys, that apparel and hats and things like that. But that's going to be one of our shirts. Diversity, baby. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, diversity, baby. And one guy, I'm not to go on a rant, but we need some humor in this podcast. It's early in the morning. The coffee hadn't kicked in real good yet. But the other one, when one guy said, you need to make a shirt that says "Got Weed" with a picture of a ragweed.
Oh, yeah.
A ragweed leaf would be fantastic too. Got weed, ragweed. So anyway.
We're going to get an email and someone's going to be like, if you don't do that t-shirt, I'm going to be upset.
I'm going to make it myself.
Yeah.
We already trademarked it. Don't even try it. So anyway, I don't know where we're at in time, but
the other thing that we're talking about is the diversity in these beans. Mm-hmm. And let's say, okay, we're just going to set up a situation, hypothetical situation. And in a fall food plot world, with these beans, like we always trying to talk about, like, let's say you've got a bigger destination plot or just a plot you want to try and suck deer into, just to get them within range, early season. With these beans, the price point that they're at, it's economical now to plant within, 50 yards and in and around your stand as season's opening, in the fall. We always think about planting soybeans springtime. But now, because of the price point in which these beans are at, it's feasible to plant them and have, let's just say a foot tall growing soybeans during this time frame, as season opens up, September, October. And those soybeans are going to be such an attraction There's nowhere else that's going to be planting young tender soybeans at that time frame.
No, not at all. And you think about that time of the year when you're planting, a lot of times that's July or August, and we're starting to get hot and dry. A lot of the native vegetation is starting to kind of wax over, and it's not as palatable. But then you see a young tender soybean. It's something to where, I mean, that's even like you said, that's even that bean is almost a fall food plot mix as well, because
if you want it to be, you don't have to. But let's say if you do have a really small plot, like a half acre or quarter acre, you could go back in and I would say replant some portions if you wanted to. Like they're just at a price where you're not breaking the bank to have a really great stand. Basically, you can have a great stand at any point during the season.
No doubt. And of course, if you plant them that late in the summer, they're not going to be, most likely, unless you're way down south, producing pods. But it has the ability. You're planting that late, you're going to have it's going to be hard to beat.
It's a huge attraction.
Attraction that good. And I think to be honest with you, I'm excited about that. They call it their duck blend. It's Feeding Frenzy.
Yeah.
But the mixes they have in there is a great upland mix for quail.
Oh, yeah.
There's that dwarf corn and a couple millets and buckwheat and sunflower. I'm not sure. Milo, I think. And I think I'm going to get some of that and just plant it in areas that on the farm where you've seen quail, just so there's a little bit of an attraction there. And
just to try it again, like we talked about, experimenting, seeing what happens, seeing how it takes in these conditions, and seeing if the quail are there still, how they respond to it.
Yep. How often we walk through there and kick them up. So anyway, I can't tell you guys how excited we are about this, just because when we start looking at partners to work with, I almost like
cringe when I hear that.
Yeah, it's like partner or sponsor or whatever. Partner that we're working with, and we have the ability to help them help us as far as developing these blends that we've been testing and trying and had great success with. Or I mean, in the last 4 years, we've changed a lot with our spring mix, and we used to include other things. It was like, well, the benefit there is this, but that's really it. But then you replace it with this other species, and you go, oh, like let's use sun hemp now. We have something that provides structure, but also it's a legume, so it's going to be fixating nitrogen. But it's also at a certain growing period, it's also great forage for deer.
What we had tried in the past was a lot of sorghum Sudan to allow that big stalk to allow the lab and cowpeas to grow up it. But now, just what we've learned is by replacing that, we have another summer annual, the sun hemp.
That grows tall, 6-7 foot tall.
It can still vine up, but it can still produce, it now produces a forage quality and fixates a ton of nitrogen in that plot, whereas the sorghum Sudan didn't do all that.
And I think that blend is something to where, by design, it still has soybeans in it. But when we look at it from, okay, why would you want to plant that versus soybeans? And some of your smaller plots, soybeans just isn't an option. Straight soybeans, a monoculture soybeans, just because deer love them and there's not anything really protecting them, so they can just come in and wipe the plate clean. But by planting these mixes during a certain time of the year or a certain couple of weeks, this one may not be preferred, so they lay off of it and they try to eat this other one, but there's other stuff growing to help protect some of it to where they're not able to completely annihilate what's growing, to where there should always be something growing and something protecting that soil, but providing other benefits, not only the deer, but this is, when we planted that mix over the years, you go in there during the summer and there's butterflies and honeybees just going nuts.
There's
frogs.
There's so much moisture that's trapped against the ground because there's so much vegetation growing. It's alive. Like, we're stepping over frogs and seeing them hop underneath their feet and stuff because it's just teeming with
insects.
Creatures.
Yep.
Yeah, insects that are pollinating stuff, making things grow, but just that environment is there. Whereas if you were to go to a just crop field, I don't ever see that.
No.
Usually there's pre-emergence that are sprayed, so there's zero ground cover. Like, there's nothing. There's no habitat, if you will, for those critters. And just being able to see that success with these mixes and blends, it's fun. And that success right there doesn't have to happen over years and years and years. You can see that if you plant it, this spring.
Yep. And that's what's so exciting for me. So hopefully you guys don't miss out on the fact that if you're in an area and you're like, how can I get this stuff? And you're there's a hardware store or a feed store just up the street, it could be an opportunity to talk to them and get some of that seed in that store as a dealer. So it's definitely, if you're like, well, don't outrule the fact that you can help find dealers in your area to where you can get some of this seed. I promise you there's not much. And when it comes to these blends, we're not seeing a lot of blends that are in this, that have this type of seed mix.
And there's no area that Stratton doesn't want to be in either. Yeah. If there's a person who wants to help distribute and get that seed out there, there's a huge hunter population out of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and they haven't gotten there yet because they've been focused on the ag in the Southeast, and they're huge. They cover all that territory, but with the food plot, it's going to allow them to expand up there and hit that market too. So if you're someone up there looking to do this type of thing in your area, don't overlook the possibilities of becoming or reaching out to a local seed dealer. Because again, it's advantageous for them because the price point is still really, really exciting and encouraging for a consumer.
Absolutely. I don't. Where are we at in time even? We should be coming up on Would You Rather. So let's go ahead. My Would You Rather this week, when it comes to laying out a farm, and you have, let's just say, some people would drool. I would drool over this as well. But let's say you have a 20-acre field. Would you rather plant the entire thing in soybeans or some sort of corn or some type of food plot? Or would you rather break that up and have a couple of 2-acre food plots scattered around inside that 20-acre field that you let the rest grow up? Maybe you plant native grasses or you let it grow up in weeds or whatever. What one would you rather do?
Great question. That answer would honestly probably depend on the neighborhood. What else is around? Am I in an ag setting? Is there a lot of other forages out there during the growing season to basically offset some of the pressure that I might experience within those smaller plots? That's something I would look into. But I would say definitely the smaller plots in and around the native grasses or old field management areas, I would much rather have that. And for a fact of it's going to hunt a lot easier. Basically getting a deer within bow range on a couple 2-acre plots is a lot easier than doing so in a 20-acre crop field.
Oh, I think of that headache of how many times have you hunted a big crop field and they come out at the other end, you think, how in the world can I ever do? We will devote a whole podcast to this because it's something that can be done to where you can have a large food source but steer deer to an area to where you can actually successfully harvest them. So that's coming up.
Yeah, but ideally, just again for the habitat type, the more concentrating deer into specific areas for ease of harvest. And I want to break up. I want to have edge. I want to have the ability to funnel deer, and I would break up that 20-acre field.
I think when I think about it, and if you're in a situation where you have to plant the entire area in a food plot, like it's like, oh, it's 20 acres, I have to plant it. There's probably a chance that the habitat's lacking somewhere.
Right, as if you don't have enough forage.
You don't have enough native forage elsewhere.
Correct.
You don't have enough forage in your understory of your timber. You don't have enough old field or native grass scattered around. You don't have enough weeds, if you will, to where if you're looking and saying, well, it's an open area or it's a bottom field, it has to be entirely planted in some sort of crop. probably a pretty good indicator something's lacking somewhere.
There's, like we talked about earlier, kind of how we introduced the podcast, there's probably too much emphasis on planting food plots versus habitat management elsewhere on the property.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good indicator, not necessarily the truth for every situation, but that's why food plots is a important part of it, but not the end-all solution to habitat management.
No, it's not.
And it's a part that's got a lot of possibility, but again, for diversity, but it's not the end-all.
To me, it's like a vitamin. It's just like it's there if you need it. It just helps them along. Very important that we plant them. I mean, it's a huge part of our success, but I think it's definitely not to take away from habitat management.
Yeah.
So, what's mine?
Oh, well, I'm doing this on the fly because I totally forgot about Would You Rather.
Yeah.
But this is a hunting scenario question, okay? Would you rather spot and stalk a Western Kansas whitetail, or would you rather go to Alberta and spot and stalk a mule deer?
Oh, Kansas, baby.
Kansas?
Kansas. Yep.
Why is that?
I'm guessing where I'm stalking is prairie, right?
Western Kansas.
Western Kansas. I don't know. I just think there's something. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of Alberta and big muleys, but I just love Kansas, the prairie, big whitetails. I've got to go with Kansas.
Gotta go with Kansas. Okay.
Yeah. I know you're going to pick Alberta because you've got
a weird obsession bucket list. I just want to go and do it so bad. But would I turn down the opportunity? No, I wouldn't in Kansas. Yeah. There's just honestly, I don't think either of us would turn down an opportunity to go hunt something like that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you asked me to go hunt squirrels in Alabama, I'd be like, oh, that'd be cool. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's this week's Would You Rather, brought to you by Huntera Maps. You got anything else?
I think we're about ready to wrap it up, but
right here.
The new New
quality whitetails, QDMA's magazine.
I have yet to be able to look through it, but
I was just sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
We're recording here, but if you guys aren't a member of QDMA, it's definitely something you're missing out on.
Also, with QDMA, regarding QDMA, their national convention is coming up in July. They're opened up the ability to sign up for that convention in March. So if you have not signed up or are interested in signing up, look into it. It's a great convention. Adam and I will be speaking the Saturday.
Oh, it is going to be a fun one.
It's going to be a fun one. We're not going to say what we're speaking.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
It's going to be really good.
Not to toot our own horn, but it is going to be so good. I hope so many people listen to it. I think there's going to be an opportunity for people to find it online.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be one of those things that really go, wow, there is so much I can do to improve the farm. So
much. It's going to be extremely visual, engaging. We're super excited.
We're already starting to kind of prep for it, and I mean we're how many months out? 3 months out?
Yeah,
2 months out, something like that. So it's going to be a heck of a slideshow.
Yeah. So there's that, and we'll also be doing a podcast, a live filming of a podcast down there with attendees at QDMA. So if you're going down there, love to have you. If not, you can follow up with that conversation with attendees after that podcast is released. But look into convention if you're not already signed up or a member.
Come join us in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
All
You ready
right.
to wrap this sucker up?
That's it. We thank you guys so much for joining us. And podcast number 56?
57.
How did we make it? 57. How did we make it so far?
I don't know.
57. Who would have thunk it? So anyway, appreciate you guys for joining us for another week, and we'll catch you next time.
We'll see ya. Thanks for listening to another episode of Land and Legacy's Hunting and Habitat Management Podcast. If you like what you hear, check us out at landandlegacy.tv. You can submit a viewer question right there, and we're answering on the podcast, or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Feels pretty good knowing that from the beginning of time, God has called us to be a caretaker, gamekeeper, a manager of the land. So with that being said, don't you think we should do it all for the love of the land and the glory to God?